every courier, regardless of whether it's Foodora or Uber Eats or anything like that, you're all self-employed, okay? You're basically you sign up to ride for someone else to deliver food or deliver other products and whatnot. And so no one is taking source deductions from you. If you had a job, when you get paid every 2 weeks, that's after taxes and everything already. When you're self-employed, that's not the case. They just give you what you earned for that time. It's your responsibility to save the taxes and to file annually and pay the government whatever is left over. So it's important that you kind of stay on top of your taxes, because if you have 3 or 4 years of self-employed taxes to do and $5,000 bill each year, that's a lot of money adding up for one shot. So you definitely want to try and stay on top of it. Now, when you're a sole proprietor, it doesn't matter what you do with your money when you get it. If you get it and you pay it rent or groceries or anything else like that, that's irrelevant. The government doesn't care. What they care about is your total income collected. So that would be generally from these reports that Uber Eats or Foodora gives you, right? But sometimes you have to track some other things on your own. That includes tips, technically. So you may consider adding tips. Some of them are on the report, some of them are cash, but that's up to you. If you were to declare your Foodora tips, you would just add it to your self-employment income. Say Foodora paid me $10,000, I got $1,000 in tips over the year, now my income is $11,000, right? That's your collected income. If you wanted a place to put tips and you were a server, they would go on line 104, which is called other income, so other employment income, and that's primarily tips and gifts. And that's basically it. You track all your income from your 3-4 different providers, and that's one step. The next step is your expenses. Your expenses being things like your bicycle, gear for the bicycle, outdoor gear, food, insurance, basically anything you need to run your business, right? You do have to treat yourself as a business owner to some degree, even though you're not owning Foodora or Uber Eats. You're owning your delivery business. So basically, you would just want to track. Now, Excel is fine. You don't have to go crazy on accounting software and tracking all that stuff. You can store all of your receipts in a shoebox for the whole year and then add it up at the end of the year. It'd take you a couple hours. You'd have no idea how much you made throughout the year after your costs, but at least you're only worrying about once a year. Traditionally, though, it would be nice if you could organize them on Excel to some degree, or in a notebook to write down when you purchase things, so that you do have a record as you're going. Because you want to know if you've made $10,000 at the end of 6 months, you're thinking, okay, I don't have to save much for tax, but then maybe the second 6 months over the summer it's really busy or whatnot, and you made another $20,000. Now you're at 30, maybe you didn't save anything, and now you pretty much owe the government $5,000 to $6,000 a year, right? So you do want to save receipts, number one, for proof of any claims you make. That's the itemized receipt, the one that lists off what you purchased. Digital is fine. You don't have to have printouts all the time. In fact, if you get printouts from stores like Starbucks or wherever you happen to buy something, you can take a photo of it. That qualifies. No big deal. Because if they need a hard copy, you just print it, and there's your hard copy again. So you're saving the receipts. You're just tracking your costs as they go. And then at the end of the year, you have your answer. Income, variety of expenses, whatever's left over, that's what you pay tax on. That's self-employment in a nutshell. No matter what year you're doing, no matter how many years you're doing, you're looking for total income and total expenses by general category. You can't just say to an accountant or a tax software, I spent $10,000 last year. What did you spend $10,000 on? We need to have a small breakdown. So it doesn't have to be specific, but it does have to be a breakdown. They can. They might even ask from the company directly. Like, for example, Airbnb, when it first started, for the first few years, CRA had no idea. Then a lot of people were hitting the news bragging about making $200,000, and those people got nailed pretty hard. That was hilarious. But then the CRA jumped in bed with Airbnb and sat down at their office and said, give us all of your reports. They probably had a metric saying X amount of dollars plus, and we're going to cross-reference those people with their tax return. And I know, for example, Home Depot, just like MEC in the sense that they have a co-op card, Home Depot has contractor cards, and last year they started getting the records from Home Depot on material purchasing from contractors. They're going to cross-reference those material purchasing with their tax reports to determine where the money fell off for cash jobs and things like that. Yeah. So the CRA is not stupid. They are pretty slow, but they're definitely not stupid. Will they ever come down on Foodora and say, hey, Foodora, we want to see your Courier's reports? I highly doubt it. I mean, most people are doing this as income supplementation, so they're not making like a large sum of money. Not to say it's not possible, it's just not common. So I don't really think the CRA is ever going to ask Foodora for their records for you guys. But theoretically, if you were to be audited / reviewed, the government would say prove your income as well as prove your expenses, and then you would have to submit your Foodora report anyway at that point. Pack up and go to Mexico. No, I mean, okay, so they're doing a lot of these audits remotely, right? So they call you up and they say, hey, we want to take a look at your stuff, right? Basically, and with my client who had to mail in all of his stuff, basically the deepest audit is you have to organize your receipts by category, write the totals on them. Maybe you have a ticker tape on it too, but at least the totals. And then you put it up in an envelope and you mail it to the CRA. Someone will go through the receipts, add it up as well, and determine what they think is allowable and not. And they'll find something that isn't because that's just their job. So that's worst case, right? And that usually audits can take anywhere from a month if you're very organized, but if you're not organized, 6 months just to even get them the stuff, right? They could review certain things. Now, if you're a student or someone who claims rent on your personal taxes, if they contact you saying, we want to see your tuition receipt or we want to see your rent receipt, that's not an audit. And that is definitely not the accountant's fault. That is a standard practice by the CRA because it's very easy for them to match those very small amounts. It's one rent receipt and one tuition receipt from the university or college. That's it. That's not an audit. That's a basic entry-level review. They used to do it for Metro passes back in the day as well. And donations, they might do it for donations. Show me your proof of donation. No problem, here's the receipts, right? And that's done online too. But yeah, if you get a full audit, you have to make sure you have all the receipts. So you basically go through adding them up again and be like, okay, well, this is what I claimed, but this is what I can prove. They will lower it to what you can prove.
But they can also ask for multiple years.
Yes, if they lose confidence in that 1 year and it's a big discrepancy, they can roll that into other years too.
Big discrepancy.
Like let's say you claim $10,000 worth of expenses, but you can only prove 5. What are the odds you didn't do that last year too, right? So they'd be like 7 years.
So basically keep a file folder at home every
7 years.
And then at the end of that,
shred it.
Year for the next one.
Absolutely. Yep. Digitize, take photos, put them in folders on a computer, and forget about it. Back it up into a hard drive.
What if it was like your first year having to pay HST and you kind of, put in a number that they didn't agree with and they thought it was, a big chunk?
Yeah.
And could they go back and say, we want all of your information for your income? Or
Not likely. So HST again, HST is over here. Personal taxes and income taxes are over here. They rarely speak to one another. So an HST review that you fail might not necessarily lead to an income tax audit, or vice versa.
But it could.
I mean, I don't want to say it can't because that would be a very definite statement.
Okay.
I would say the probability is like 3%. I've never seen it happen ever. Never heard of it happening. Not to say it's not possible, but internally the government does not speak to one another, but they're getting better. They're slow, not stupid. In terms of flags, definitely if you receive a major personal benefit from something, right? Or if you're running a deep loss. But even those are not, if you're running a deep loss against other employment income, that will likely do it because they're like, are you actually trying to make money? Now in 1 year, they're not going to bother you. But if you run a deep loss or a loss over the course of say 3 years, it's kind of the industry knowledge thing where they're like 3 years or more, be ready to find out why you're running a business that fails so hard because that you're just burning money at that point.
Like 3 years in a row? Or
Yeah,
2 years?
3 years in a row, as far as I know. Yeah, because if you turn profitable for 2 years and then you fail again, I don't think they're going to look at that in a negative sense. Yeah. Other things that they may raise flags would be some of your expense categories, specifically meals and advertising, that are very high, right? Like as a Foodora rider or a courier in general, unless you're doing your own couriering business, you're not going to have any advertising.
Yeah.
So if you throw down $10,000 in advertising, it's kind of a flag because it doesn't make sense. Huh?
Maybe I just really like the company.
Maybe, yeah. But you spent $10,000 on getting their name out there. But if you were an independent courier, like you were trying to do your own thing, start your own business, then that would be normal, right? So it's things like that that you would see. But for the most part, you know what, it's a risk thing. Be as honest. I mean, you should be very honest, but you know what you can and can't claim to some degree. You know what you're not comfortable with claiming. If you're going to lose sleep by making a claim and you think the government's going to come after you, don't put it on there. Just leave it off, right?